What was the story from Monday, the day before yesterday? Okay, between Wednesday, in between the two Wednesdays, we have the headline, Drought-Fueled Wildfires Rage in California and New Mexico. Wow, what a surprise. It's not hard to be a doomsday prophet in this day and age. Right here from Associated Press, Reuters. A trio of drought-fueled wildfires raged in New Mexico and California on Sunday, with the biggest blaze forcing the evacuation of more than 2,000 people from their homes north of Los Angeles. The powerhouse wildfire in Southern California's Lake Hughes area, about 65 miles outside of LA, destroyed 6 houses and was threatening more than 1,000 others. That fire in California had charred about 25,000 acres by late Sunday. Okay, what was going over in New Mexico? Okay, in New Mexico, 2 other fires also raged out of control on Sunday, one of them consuming 7,476 acres of ponderosa pine forest in the Pecos wilderness. And I guess there's another one somewhere near Jemez. The other New Mexico fire had consumed 1,745 acres of the Valles Caldera National Preserve. Quote, this is a historic drought. We have not seen anything like this since the 1950s, blah, 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 according to some firefighter there in New Mexico. And I'm sorry I don't have an update. This was the update as of Monday. I should have brought you an update of where those fires are. But if they put those out, there'll be 100 more to take its place. So that's that's one peek into the wildfire scene. Okay, moving from that story, I have my handy dandy little notepads here. From the fire-ravaged California and New Mexico, let's head back up to the Arctic Ocean, where we find this article from Live Science. Arctic sea ice melt disrupts weather patterns. Okay, that's the latest study. What's it saying? Shrinking Arctic sea ice is shifting polar weather patterns, especially in fall and winter, a new climate modeling study finds. Let's see, in fall and winter, when sea ice would normally insulate the ocean from frigid
traditionally
Arctic.
Think of wood products as the primary benefit of trees. Things like wildlife habitat and aesthetics should also be considered. Therefore, crop trees can be grouped into 3 different categories: wildlife, aesthetic, and timber. If wildlife is important to you, then you can help your woodlot support the kinds and numbers of animals you like by managing the species of trees that are beneficial to them. Of course, there are limits on how much influence you can have, but in many instances, the decisions we make regarding the vegetation in woodlots will have an important effect on the wildlife in the area. The visual benefits you currently enjoy in your woodlot can be enhanced by managing aesthetic crop trees. For example, you may enjoy the brilliance of colorful foliage in the fall, and in springtime, you might look forward to seeing attractive blossoms like these. Frequently, people think of timber products as the crop and dollar income as the benefit. Consequently, trees that have the greatest potential to produce valuable timber products are the ones that are favored and given the best growing conditions. Crop tree management can produce results like this. The two cross-sections shown here are from trees of the same age. The tree on the left, however, had the benefit of crop tree management, while the one on the right did not. Generally, trees having potential to produce veneer or lumber are much more valuable than those that can be used only for pulp or firewood. The large white oak on the right is a high-quality tree, and therefore is more valuable than the smaller tree on the left, which at this time can be used only for pulp or firewood. So how do you go about managing crop trees? You begin by finding out what you have to work with on your property. This information can easily be obtained by walking through your woodlot with a forester. It's important for you and your forester to have good, clear communication. First, your forester needs to explain what potential you have in your woodlot. Then you, the landowner, need to identify the benefits you want your woodlot to produce. You both need to discuss and agree on what objectives are obtainable. For instance, if you have trees this size in your woodlot now, you cannot expect to end up with trees this size in 15 years. That is not an obtainable objective. After you have an idea of the type of trees on your property, you may then establish specific objectives that can be accomplished by crop tree management. Usually, 2 or 3 objectives are all that you can effectively focus your attention on at one time. Here's an example of 3 typical objectives, all of which can be achieved within a woodlot over the same period of time. Once your woodlot objectives have been established and documented, you and your forester need to set up a schedule of the actions needed to meet them and a timetable for completion of each. The next important step is deciding which trees will best meet your woodlot objectives. To help us do this, we need to identify crop tree selection criteria. This is done by describing, for each crop tree category, the specific characteristics trees should have to qualify them for selection. Let's take a look first at timber crop tree selection criteria. Species is a primary factor since value varies according to species. Crown condition, size or diameter of the tree, and quality and height of the bole or trunk are also important considerations. Favor trees with large, healthy, symmetrical crowns. Trees having relatively small crowns compared to the size of their trunks are less desirable choices. Think of the crown as the tree's factory. Once released from competition, trees that have a factory in good condition are ready to go online and start producing benefits right away. Trees with small crowns must first invest their available resources in building up their factories. Look for boles or trunks that are straight, particularly in the bottom 17 feet, since the lower portion of the tree yields the highest value timber products. Low forks in the main stem are undesirable because they often limit the length of high-value timber products that can be produced. Forks also predispose the tree to damage during wind and ice storms since they are likely to break. Large, dead limbs located in the lower, more valuable portion of the tree can be a serious defect because they invite decay to enter the trunk. Epicormic branches are an undesirable characteristic. Epi means upon, and cormic means stem. Since the lower stem or trunk of a tree is the most valuable, these branches that appear upon the stem tend to reduce the tree's value. Knots, which form in the wood wherever branches occur on a tree, lower the value of the lumber produced. This lumber, which contains knots, is worth considerably less than this knot-free lumber. Trees that lean are generally not good choices for crop trees. Not only are they at risk of coming down during storms, but the timber products they yield are often not as valuable as those produced by straight trees. If you plan to sell your timber crop trees in 15 or 20 years, they should have a current diameter of at least 12 inches in order to yield high-quality products at harvest time. Trees of this size with healthy crowns will respond well to the opportunities available to them when they are released. Releasing crop trees means removing selected neighboring trees to open things up and give the crop trees room to grow. Trees that originate from stump sprouts may be chosen as crop trees if the sprout developed at or near ground line. Stumps that have been cut very low to the ground tend to produce sprouts that are acceptable choices for crop. Stump sprouts join at the base in two forms. The two sprouts shown in the center of this illustration have grown together to form a V-shaped connection. The other two sprouts on either side of the stump represent what is known as a U-shaped connection. Trees joined with a V-shaped connection generally do not make good crop trees. In most cases, a decision must be made to either cut both or leave both. If one is cut and the other left, the decaying stump of the removed tree provides an entry for rot into the tree that remains. Trees having a U-shaped connection may be considered individually as crop trees. Since their bases are independent of each other, they can be harvested at different times. This means that one can be removed without providing an avenue of decay into the other. Now, let's move on to the selection criteria for wildlife crop trees. Species is a primary consideration, along with crown condition, size or diameter of the tree, and den potential. Favor species which produce mast or food for wildlife, such as this white oak in the center. These acorns produced by oak trees are an example of hard mast. These fruits of the black cherry tree are an example of soft mast. Crop trees selected to produce masts should have a minimum diameter of 10 inches, since that's the size at which most of them start bearing good crops. They should also have large, healthy crowns, but also on how intensively you're willing to manage them. If you don't want dense undergrowth to develop in your forest, then you won't be able to fully release a large number of crop trees per acre. Greenbriers are an example of what you can expect to appear in your woodlot if it's opened up very much. They're quite beneficial to wildlife, but not very pleasant to walk through. Probably the best way to understand the impact that various intensities of cutting have on the understory is to look at some stands that have been previously harvested. Regardless of the number of crop trees you decide to manage per acre, be sure to focus your attention on choosing the ones with the greatest potential to produce the benefits you desire. Concentrate your efforts on releasing these best trees from competition from neighboring trees. A good means of doing this is to apply a crown-touching release, which essentially removes all trees except for other crop trees whose crowns come in contact with or touch the crop tree. Here's a crop tree in the center whose crown is restricted by its neighbors crowding in around it. This picture shows a fully released crop tree that is now free to grow because its competitors have been removed. Up to this point, we've talked about producing benefits that you, the current landowner, may have at least a reasonable expectation of realizing in your lifetime. Now comes the tough part, convincing you to do something that you may not receive personal financial benefit from. We would like to persuade you to dedicate a portion of your woodlot to the establishment of desirable regeneration. We must renew and perpetuate our valuable forest resource so that our children and our children's children will be assured use of it during their lifetimes. To do this, we need to act now by helping